Hello, I'm Dr. Katherine Horton. This is an update about the events of the last week and the new announcements. So last week was quite impressive, quite spectacular. It had its fireworks. So on at the beginning of the week, I was trying to get through to the embassy. That was extremely hard because essentially I was brutally shot in the head with microwave weapons on the way there and on the way back. And they also did a new thing where they irradiated my throat such that I felt that I was suffocating whilst I was driving my car towards the embassy. And then on the way back I was brutally attacked. I tried to get through to the embassy, but I couldn't. I have emailed through the contact, or submitted my request for meeting with Miss Richter, whom I met before Christmas, asking for assistance or asking for a meeting to actually discuss my case. Miss Richter since has refused to even get in touch with me. So there are no replies coming back from submitting requests through to the embassy website. None whatsoever, absolutely no feedback, which is why on Monday I went there. On Monday, because I was attacked on the way, but also I lost my way in Bern and I missed the actual opening time, so I arrived at 5 o'clock and the embassy closes at 4:45 or something like that. So there was absolutely no one at the embassy. I think I called the emergency line. There's a mobile phone number at the German embassy, but that one doesn't get answered. So I wasn't called back, nothing. That was Monday. On Tuesday, I drove there and I actually went to the. I think I arrived in the afternoon at 2 o'clock or something like that. And I was told by the porter that everybody in the embassy had some sort of meeting, and they have some numbered letter number combination of a meeting. So I couldn't meet Miss Richter there. And then he said, well, you can just come back another time. And I said, okay, then I will be there tomorrow. And he said, yeah, sure, tomorrow will be fine. And I said, well, okay, maybe I come in the morning. But he didn't say, oh, you have to come in the morning because that's only when Miss Richter's there. I said, okay, I'll try to come in the morning. Now, Tuesday night, I was shot to pieces until, I think, 3 or 4 a.m. It was brutal. They were shooting into me all night long. They were yanking and jerking my muscle pulsing me, so they wait until you're about to fall asleep and they can measure your brainwave, and then as you're about to fall asleep they yank you as hard as they can. I'm not sure if I've got implants or chips or if they just shoot a massive electromagnetic pulse into me, but they just kept doing that to keep me awake. And then on top of that, I've also had my body shot into, but it feels like hundreds of daggers just being shot into you. That's when they turn on the military microwave gun equipment and just essentially fire an artillery barrage into you. And I'm sleeping under shielding. I've showed you what it looks like when I go to bed. The Faraday cage, I do have a Faraday cage from Aronia, is not making a difference. They shoot straight through. Absolutely no difference whatsoever. So it's also just a dampening effect. So, it just shows you with what intensity they just fire into my body. So I was shot up at night. I couldn't sleep. And of course, when you're up until like 4 a.m. in the morning, you can't be really at the German embassy in Bern for 8 a.m. So I tried to get some sleep, and then in the end I was there in the afternoon. I think I was again there at something like 2 o'clock or something, because it takes some time to drive down from Zurich. And then the porter grinningly said to me, well, you should have been here in the morning. Miss Richter isn't here anymore. And I thought, well, you didn't tell me I should have to be there in the morning. You told me, that they will be fine. So that was very strange. But essentially with the embassy, the German embassy, the oddities just kept accumulating. Because that was essentially Wednesday. So I've driven down to the embassy 3 times last week. And then on Thursday, I called them in the morning, and essentially I got through to the message that is played through the phone, but the first sentence was, the embassy is now closed. So the embassy is closed today. Ist heute geschlossen. Die deutsche Botschaft ist heute geschlossen. So the embassy is closed today, on Thursday. That was really odd, because it didn't show up under the public holidays on the embassy's website. So, on Thursday I thought, well, that's it, that must be it. So on Friday I called again, and I got the very same message in the morning. It said, die Botschaft ist heute geschlossen. The embassy is closed today. Oh, I thought, now that cannot be, So literally I thought, right, I'm just going to try again. And I thought, well, this is so outrageous. It's not on the public holiday list. I put in the essentially the recording device with which I can record phone calls. And I thought, right, I'm going to call back. And then when I was recording the message, I plug in this recording device. I dialed the number again. That's when I got through to the porter. And I said, well, the telephone line said that it's closed. How the hell can that be? And he said, well, we were open all along. I said, well, how come that when I call the embassy from my Swiss landline to your Swiss landline, it says that the embassy is closed? So that was sabotage. It's just plain and simple sabotage. And then I said on Thursday afternoon, I said, right, I still have time to drive down to the embassy. Can I speak to Miss Richter? And he said, Miss Richter is ill. Okay, so, Monday was my fault that I didn't manage to get there, but I was, again, shot in the head driving the car. Them trying to make me have an accident. On Tuesday, they have a meeting, and that lasts all the way until the end. On Wednesday, Miss Richter isn't there in the afternoon. On Thursday, I'm told that the embassy is closed by the phone message. On Friday, I get the same message, and the phone message magically disappears when I'm trying to record it. So that was really odd. But essentially, when on Friday the phone message said the embassy is closed again, I thought, right, after all the mutilations this week, I thought, right, I'm going to call the mobile number. They've got the mobile helpline on the embassy website. So I called the emergency mobile number, and of course it didn't call back. And then after I spoke to the porter, I thought, oh, maybe my phone is hacked. Let's just check the router. And just through that, I logged myself into the router, and I discovered that throughout this time, the telephone was right next to me on my desk the entire time. And then I log into the router, I can see my call to the embassy, and I also see that there were 2 missed calls from the mobile phone number of the embassy, but the telephone never rang. The telephone never rang. So my telephone is sabotaged by Swiss intelligence. Okay, either the German embassy is literally taking the piss, which I wouldn't be surprised, because they're essentially a BND, seedling here, and the BND started my mutilation. But this is taking the piss. Either way, it's either Swiss intelligence or German intelligence preventing a German citizen from getting through to the German embassy. Now that's Nazi deep capture, right? I mean, that's writ large. So that was essentially the story with the embassy this week. On Wednesday, when I was told, and I must say by a grinning porter, right? By a grinning porter, you kind of notice when people are a bit too jeering, and you think, well, hang on. I'm saying that there are concentration camps and people are being shot to pieces in their own home. And I've got this monkey grinning at me because all he can tell is, ha ha ha, we just have to, get rid of this woman. So you're dealing with these utterly degenerate morons. And after my experience last week, I'm going to try to get through to Miss Richter, but I've lost my patience. I basically wrote to the Foreign Office and I said, I don't know what's going on at the Foreign Office. I have no idea. I have the German ambassador refusing to assist a German citizen for over a year. I speak to Miss Richter, I submit my case file, and I do not get any feedback. And when I try to talk to Miss Richter, just before Christmas they said, oh, she's already on holiday. When I come back, oh, now she's in a meeting, now she's magically ill. I'm sorry. At the same time, I'm calling the embassy, I'm given false messages, and the embassy mobile calls my number, and the telephone doesn't ring. Isn't that a bit too many coincidences here? So essentially I submitted a complaint to the Foreign Office at the end of last week, and I said I really think the ambassador has to be replaced, and please tell me what exactly is going on here at the embassy in Bern. I can't make sense of that place. I don't know what exactly they do. We're talking genocide here. We're talking concentration camps. The victims are still alive. They are begging for help, and the German embassy cannot be fucked. Well, then it's not a German embassy. Then it's not a German ambassador. I don't know what he is. Maybe a Nazi collaborator. But when it has reached that stage, the ambassador has to go. And his tenure is up in 2017. So good riddance. And essentially my suggestion would be to put Michael Kanzler as the next ambassador, because he knows about microwave weapons. He's decent enough to open the door, if even himself, when necessary. And he has the solid honesty, and when I give him facts that are obvious, he actually says, yes, you're probably right. And that is essentially what we need, because we do not have time anymore to be playing games. And I explained that, we're here and we have to be here. And we have to go through the sequence very, very fast to essentially make a difference. So I, for one, have no more patience to actually be ninning around with an ambassador who's everything but. So that was the embassy. On Wednesday, I was so annoyed that I essentially went straight to military HQ in Switzerland, and I managed to get in, and I managed to talk to, by his own admission, a senior guy in the NDB, Swiss intelligence. So I spoke to him for over an hour, I think an hour and 20 minutes roughly. So it was a good long meeting. And I told him about the case. I told him that it's very important that these concentration camps are shut down in Switzerland, that this decentralized weapon system is being shut down. Of course he took the piss. Of course he was trying to just, essentially fob me off. However, by doing that, he didn't realize that he essentially, by revealing himself to be an intelligence agent, he essentially accepted my file. I also gave him my file with my documentation in there. So he accepted my file. So now there's no way the NDB can deny that they don't know about my case. I gave it personally to a senior guy at the NDB, and I talked to him for an hour and 20 minutes. So whilst he was trying to fob me off, also he was a bit careless, and what he slipped out is that essentially that he keeps getting essentially complaints from people complaining about microwave attacks, and also people complain about being chipped in the head. That's his words, not mine. I didn't bring up chipping in the head. That's what he brought up. And he openly confessed that he gets a lot of complaints about microwave weapons. Now this means that this decentralized weapon system is live and is shooting people up here in Switzerland. So it means that there are many, many people in concentration camps here in Switzerland being exterminated. That is the statement by a senior guy in the NDB who was rather forthright, with this information. He volunteered it. So that's it. He also said that, I'm chipped. He assumed me to be chipped in the head. So I didn't say that. he said, and that would make sense because this would explain how they're reading out brainwaves and how they're actually maiming and mutilating me. However, what I also have to say is I'm spending an hour and 20 minutes explaining why, for the national security of Switzerland, it is of paramount importance that the concentration camps are shut down, because the fact that they do have concentration camps here in Switzerland, just like they have across the US and Europe, means that in the next war, which is about to be trumped up, Switzerland will be involved. And I was trying to explain to this guy that given that Switzerland is quite a big weapons cache and gold cache here in Europe, it will be a prime target for looting. Well, all I can say is that after an hour and a half, by the time we went back to the Porter's Lodge, what this guy was most concerned about is checking out his looks in the reflective glass, you know, waiting for the slidey in airlock high security door to open. And I kept thinking, oh my God, here I am as a German citizen in Switzerland, right? Desperately fighting for Swiss national security, and a senior guy at the NDB is most concerned about how hot he looks. Wow. Now, at that point, it means that the NDB has reached a level of degeneracy that is dangerous. It's essentially this man's idiocy and narcissism is a threat to national security. That's what it means. Because he doesn't get it. I explained it to him in greatest detail, and he doesn't get it. Now that's a problem. When you've got someone quite so, you know, whacked out as a senior NDB agent, that's a big fat problem here in Switzerland. So maybe people could think about having this guy, you know, maybe put him in a post where he can cause less harm and has to take in less information and can focus on his grooming. So this was Wednesday. On Thursday, on a more positive note, Ramola D and Karen Stewart and I, we announced the Joint Investigation Group. This is an international investigation group, also comprising Millicent Black and Melanie Richter. We are essentially working together trying to investigate these crimes, trying to create evidence and move towards court cases to help the victims in a civilized way. That's the goal. Essentially, we're in a situation where the FBI, the Bundeskriminalamt, so the German Federal Police Service, and certainly the police service in Switzerland and the police services in the UK are suspended. They are not operational. They do not investigate attacks with microwave weapons. They have been suspended because they've been captured and infiltrated by MI5. And we know the intelligence agencies are in turn in deep capture, but the police is also in deep capture, and that's why they do not investigate crimes. It's exactly a one-to-one repeat of the Gestapo, essentially, because when the Gestapo and the SS and all these nutjob, you know, associations before the Second World War kicked off, the first thing they did is get rid of all the decent police officers and put these degenerate thugs in, so that when they started looting and harming people and they complained to the police did nothing. They essentially condoned murder, they condoned maiming, and now we have exactly the same. The UK police, I tried to report a brutal microwave attack to them, and they did nothing. They still have refused to send me my case report, my crime report, even though I requested it in writing. That is Greater Manchester Police. So Greater Manchester Police, and from what I know from other victims, the entire police force of the UK is suspended. The Bundeskriminalamt is in deep capture as well. They sent back the physical letter where I listed all the VIP victims that are very well known, who have been attacked with electromagnetic weapons, including Karen Hooders, the ex-General Counsel of the World Bank. And they sent back the physical letter so that it doesn't appear in my file. Now that's corruption. that's falsifying official documents. And this means the Bundeskriminalamt is in deep capture. It's essentially, it has been taken over by criminal elements. Now here the Swiss police did exactly the same. They threatened to section me when I reported it to the local police. I reported it to the criminal police. They did the same thing. They passed it to the local police and then again tried to section me. When I reported it to the military police, they tried to assassinate me. So I think it's fair to say that any form of police here in Switzerland is suspended. When the FBI, the police forces, the Bundeskriminalamt and the Swiss military police and the Swiss police are suspended, it is the responsibility of private citizens to essentially take care of law and order themselves, and this includes FBI-style investigations. So this is why essentially Karen Stewart and I and Ramola and Dr. Millicent Black and Melanie Richter, we came together and we thought, well, amongst ourselves we have enough skills, worthy of the FBI to actually do an investigation, and that's what we have to do because the police force is suspended and people are being mutilated to death and people are being put into concentration camps and exterminated. That's the reality. Here in Switzerland, in the UK, Germany, Poland, Japan, the US, everywhere. So this is it. So that was the announcement of the Joint Investigation Group. And immediately after the announcement of the Joint Investigation Group, we also experienced other forms of very odd interactions. I, for example, that's still being clarified, but I, for example, that was also the last week. I was essentially libeled. This is now the second time this happens. The first time I was accused to have stolen intellectual property by Annie Kaspar after only knowing her for a couple of weeks. That exploded, and essentially I was accused of, I think, hooliganism, of like a whole list of things, and so were Karen Stewart and Ramola D as well. So I asked for clarification of what intellectual property I was meant to have stolen, and no clarification was forthcoming. I was fobbed off, and after a while, after several weeks, and after talking to Karen and Ramola, I actually said, well, this is, how did the Investigatory Powers Tribunal put it? It's frivolous or vexatious. And I said, well, this is frivolous and vexatious, what I'm hearing. So there was already one attack like that, but now after I've outed Dr. Robert Duncan, Brian Tew, sorry, I was just shot in the kidney from my neighbour really hard. After I outed Dr. Robert Duncan, Brian Tew hit the roof, and essentially he didn't like it at all, even though I just published the emails as they came. I still am asking, if these emails were not sent by Dr. Robert Duncan, I ask him to please come forward and clarify the situation. I asked this before. I asked Brian Tew, who gave Dr. Robert Duncan my email. I asked Brian Tew to also clarify it. He said okay, and then abusive emails started coming from what looks like Dr. Robert Duncan. So for this reason it's up on the website now, and unless this man is going to write a clarification and is willing to submit that to a court and repeat that under oath, I will just assume that this is not actual hacking or ID fraud. This is actually the real Robert Duncan, and based on what he said to me, my opinion, and it's up on my website. But Brian Tew, as a consequence, started attacking me and started saying that I'm not a real physicist, I didn't work at CERN, and that I'm a fraud. Now that's libel. And he sent it to the leaders of the victim community in the US, and I think also in Europe. I have to check, but it was a very long list of victims and leaders of victim communities, and I asked him to clarify. He also said that in our conversation irregularities had been popping up. This is very interesting because the vast majority of our so-called conversation was Brian giving me information about the technology by posting it on my YouTube site, which people can see, but also via Twitter direct messages. So I asked him to clarify what he meant, and instead of clarifying it, he essentially just repeated it and just increased the accusations against me. and it escalated to the point that he claimed that I had already been exposed by somebody as a fraud, but he couldn't name the person. So I asked him again to clarify what exactly he bases that on, why I'm a fraud, who has claims to have exposed this, if he could clear it up. And I also said, well, if you, for example, if you get in touch and you try to find me as an employee at CERN, you will not find it, because the vast majority of scientists who work at CERN on those experiments are employed by their home institute, the university. And I was employed by the University of Oxford, St. John's College. So, you know, whilst I was at CERN, you will not find me on the payroll at CERN, although I do have, you know, claims, like reimbursement claims from CERN. But you will find me on the payroll of St. John's College. And I do have the documentation to actually prove that, yes, I was at CERN. So, and my colleagues have seen that. So I asked for all these clarifications. I do have all my certificates, but there was no no clarification forthcoming from Brian Tew. So in the end, I decided to actually publish my conversation with Brian Tew as well. So everybody who you know, doubts it, or you know, wants to find out what exactly happened, you can see how these things unfolded. Personally, my impression is that it's targeted subversion, targeted essentially causing hassle, targeted attacking, and what they were trying to do, I think, is to break up the joint investigation group. So when I teamed up with Karen and Ramola, I was meant to be split off again. And then shortly after, essentially accusations started raining in against Melanie Richan, which, you know, is still being cleared up. But Melanie, just as much as I rejected the accusations from Brian, Melanie rejected the accusations that were coming her way. But it's the timing is always, yes, inexplicable somehow, you know. And grievances were dragged up in the case of Melanie, which were, you know, years and years old, so I don't really understand. But also in that case, I wasn't present and I can't check. But I'm just surprised that we announce essentially the joint investigation group, and we start to work together, and these things start raining in, you know. Anyway, so that was that. I continue being mutilated. So after my talk to the NDB on Wednesday, I have been mutilated extremely hard. I essentially non-stop am being shot into. I have to bunker down. I have to build myself shielding every time I you know, sit at my desk. When I go into the kitchen, I'm shot in the face and in the back and in the kidney from the neighboring properties. I cannot use my living room and my dining room because it has big windows, and that's where the attackers are shooting through. So essentially, and also if I go into to the bathroom, for example, or the bedroom, which is facing directly a property with these emitters, I literally have to take the shielding with me and put it across the window just to be able to use the room. So this is how it is. It continues. These attacks just continue, and they are shooting harder and harder into a person. Also, that was, I think, was it Wednesday night? I think so, Wednesday night or Thursday night, one of these nights. The attacks were so intense at night that I could actually hear the shots bounce off the shielding. So when I lie down, I have to make essentially a triangle of shielding. Then I have to have extra head protection, and I have a metal tray at the back to protect my head. And I could hear essentially the shots bounce off the metal and the aluminium on my head and the aluminium shielding. And it's literally, it sounds like rain. So it sounds like puck, puck, tuck, tuck, like that. And the amount of energy one has to put into a shot like that to produce that effect is incredible. So these are military weapons, and essentially they are just shooting defenseless women up in their own home. And now it is for everybody to see, everybody in the world to see, that the Swiss intelligence agencies are essentially Nazis who are exterminating people. And even if you talk to them in person and you talk to somebody very high up, They continue exterminating, just like the Gestapo, just like the SS. There's no way to stop these people in a civilized fashion. And at the same time, the senior guy at the NDB has got the gall to say to my face that many people come forward and complain about microwave weapons, and they also complain about chips in their head. Well, you know, the ladies with whom I work, some of them actually prove that they do have chips in their head. They have the scan. Okay? So, you know, chips can be shot into you through your ears. You can shoot it up somebody's nose, right? You can shoot through the eye cavity if you must, you know. Apparently you can also shoot up through the ceiling of the mouth into the brain. There's also lots of things which essentially self-assemble, self-grow, and these sort of things. And according, I repeat it, to the senior guy at the NDB, I have a chip in my head. So, you know, he clearly knows my file, and he had a look. But he knows my file, he knows what's being done to me. It's a crime against humanity, and I say, please stop, and explain to him in detail why it is actually crucial for the national security of Switzerland that they do not run amok like the Gestapo, because just like the Gestapo, it ended essentially in Germany. Germany being devastated, being essentially floored, and millions of people dying. And when you have extermination camps here in Switzerland, the end result is expected to be the same. So for the interest of national security, it's the task of the NDB to shut down the concentration camps here in Switzerland. And the fact that this guy didn't get it, and when I leave, you know, his biggest concern are his looks, means that this guy is not fit to be a senior guy in the NDB. He can, I think there are places where people of his disposition are very welcome, and his looks. But, you know, it's not the NDB really, is it? So that's the sad state. The NDB is now in full-on Gestapo mode, exterminating people. Also, some people on my YouTube channel suggested that they could be talking to, could contact the Swiss embassy in their country. Please, if you could do that, that would be wonderful. I am living here in Switzerland. I'm fighting for my life here in Switzerland. It is the Swiss Nazis exterminating me, essentially. I do need help. They have destroyed my private life, my home life here in Switzerland, through 1 year of essential mutilation. And they continue trying to assassinate me here in Switzerland, including as far as I can tell, the military police. So please do contact the Swiss embassy in your country if you can get hold of them. Also, the head of the NDB can be contacted. I think the NDB should be written to, and we should just address these people straight. But at the same time also, you know, the BND, the German BND, the German foreign intelligence service, is also responsible for my mutilation, because it started on their doorstep in Munich. And so is essentially MI5 and MI6, because I was also mutilated with an assault protocol that was identical to the one executed here in Zurich in the morning, was then conducted on the motorway between London and Manchester. So MI5, MI6, the BND and the Swiss NDB are essentially one interconnected Nazi conglomerate, as far as I can tell. So any of those places, but if you could write to the Swiss embassies, that would be great, and let them know that you do know about me. And at the same time, also remember that all 5 ladies on the life sign monitor are essentially, sorry, how many are we? Yes, we're 5. Sorry, it's so late. It's now 5 a.m. So all 5 ladies are being mutilated. So Karen Stewart continues being mutilated and microwaved. Also, sorry, Ramola is. So is Millicent. She is essentially assaulted by one of the super soldiers who's using the military technology to mutilate her. and terrorize an entire community. And the FBI is so bloody degenerate that they can't get their act together. Now Karen Stewart, the person responsible for her mutilation, is essentially Admiral Rogers, the head of the NSA. And the fact that he can't get his shit together and have Karen taken off the list just shows that that guy is also beyond redemption. He's not fit for his job. He's not fit for his job. The man is the walking embarrassment as far as I'm concerned. How can you be the head of the NSA and not realize that publicly people are pleading to have an honest member of the NSA, being shot up in the US, and you can't do anything about it? You don't even know about it. I mean, what sort of head of the NSA are you? So we have essentially total embarrassment from the FBI in the US, total embarrassment from the head of the NSA, which is not a fat surprise, frankly, but still, it's appalling. Ramola is being also mutilated and shot to pieces in her home. Again, the FBI, just utterly worthless. And then Melanie Richon is being shot to pieces in Belgium. She's microwaved there. She's got implants in her head and in her body that are being set off to just torture her and mutilate her harder. And there, it's Belgian intelligence is run by Jacques Race, so another degenerate man who can't do his job. So these men have to be removed. Here in Switzerland is Markus Seiler. He has to be removed. He's not fit to do his job. He essentially, under his watch, they established concentration camps. So anyway, this video is long enough. And that's the update. Next week there will be again a podcast with the ladies who will be reporting on what has happened. Meanwhile, I know all the other victims, they are waiting for progress, and we are working flat out. We're trying to put together things for you to help you. Meanwhile, just please try to help us. We essentially have to keep these ladies alive so that they can fight for everybody else. So please help us. And if you can spare some money, there's a donation button on my website, and also for all the ladies who are fighting flat out. And please, any sort of support. If you can't, donate yourself, please help us with the fundraising, please, because we do need funds urgently to be able to just keep going. So thank you for listening, and bye for now.